60. At the bottom of the page, Paul, with me, it's being convinced. We were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may be sometimes quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play doesn't suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are things which he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? That's the reading.
Thanks, Kurt.
You're welcome.
Paul, grateful member of Recovery. Welcome, Tuesday. Yeah, this is obviously, they have two being convinced in the first two paragraphs. And then the true state of illusion, if only, talking about self. Everything would be great if only. Yeah. Basically, everything isn't great. But if only, yeah. So the funny thing is, when they're describing this as, let's say there's 30 people involved in some kind of event, and they're describing one person's point of view, which is quite similar to the other 29 people's point of view. So obviously, as it says, we're always in collision with something or somebody because we're all being driven in the same way. So it's sort of like where I live. I've been here a long time, and there's an exit off the freeway, and everyone knows it turns into one lane. It starts out as 2 lane, turns into 1 lane. But everyone tries to go on the 1 lane to get in front on the inevitable 1 lane. Every day. It doesn't matter. It's just, that's what happens. They know there's 2, but basically they think they can get faster in the 1 if they take the second one. And then sometimes you feel like you don't want to let them in. You know what I mean? And they'd have to go. But usually you relent, you know. But this is sort of like this. He's describing one person's point of view. You could, but everyone else's point of view would be in some degree the same point of view. They've got their designs and plans. You've got your designs and plans. They think their designs and plans are big. You think yours are big. There you go. Bumper car. It's just the way it goes. Yeah. So, and we all are under that illusion if we could only manage better. Or if someone or something could leave our lives, then if only they would leave, then we would be great or whatever. Yes. And then unfortunately, it always boils down to you leaving your own life, which is impossible. Because sort of like when I was young and I first started drinking, I got arrested so many weird ways. I figured, the last arrest I got arrested for was trying to leave the scene of the crime, which is impossible to do if you're the scene in the crime. So that's basically what happens. You tried to leave the scene of the crime as the scene of the crime. Self can't get out of self. Because after you blame them and this and that, you realize the reason why the party sucks is you got there. Yeah, that's the dilemma. What are you going to do with that? Perhaps there's a better way, a completely different way than the older way. It's not like we're going to make the old way a better way. No, it's just basically distinctly different. Just like where it says a new freedom and a new happiness, a new attitude, and a new outlook. This is not rehabbing the old attitude and old outlook. It's like getting, plugging in instead of, plugging into the socket in America, you're plugging into the socket in Europe. You need a different configuration to connect to the electricity. It's all electricity, but you can't access it with this old way. It's not working. Yeah. So we have a new way. And how does that new way get established? Through the working steps and the whole process, and through the spirit and through the recognition of, hopefully, the recognition of that which is playing God is not you, hopefully. Because if you keep thinking you're playing God and you got to quit it, it's just going to be more playing God. Yeah, obviously, because that which is playing God can't quit playing God. That would be playing God. You can't tell me when it gets off. It doesn't. It just keeps on re-engaging the same loop. So perhaps there's a better way. Yes. So this too, I wanted to talk about, I had the privilege of sharing at a meeting. Unfortunately, it was at 7 a.m. yesterday, but I showed up. And of course, we went into that thing. Our daily reprieve is contingent on the maintenance of our spirit's condition. But really, isn't it contingent on the maintenance of a mental condition, a mental, emotional, physical condition? Because the spirit doesn't need to be maintained. It just is. Yeah. But what actually gets maintained is a mental condition based on being brought to sanity concerning the insanity before the first drink. Yeah. And so now, because we're not relying on the mental state to produce its own states, we're relying on a spiritual state to influence the mental state. Yeah, that's my feeling. Yeah. So the spiritual state, always available at all times, wherever or whatever you're doing or where you're doing it or not doing it, that is reliable. Yeah. That's going to bring a consistency or a sobriety to the mental state, because the mental state is not reliable. Yeah. So really, our daily reprieve, the daily one, is contingent on the maintenance of a mental condition, which is influenced by the spiritual condition, instead of forgetting the spiritual condition and having the mental condition completely emphasized. Yeah. Perhaps there's a better way, is trusting the infinite, which would be the spiritual condition, instead of trusting the finite self, which would be the mental condition. So the mental condition's not going to be based on the mental anymore. It's going to be based on spirit, sound, reliable. Yeah. And then you get into the habit of being sober. Yeah. So the maintenance, that maintenance of the mental condition is living by principles, stuff like that. and therefore the mental condition stays sober, basically, a day at a time for 34 years. It doesn't, the mental condition needs maintenance. It does, because it breaks down constantly. It reverts back to the same old way that it could, if only, could manage better. But the spiritual condition doesn't. The spiritual condition doesn't break down. It doesn't go through phases. It's not, hating things and then loving things. It's not a dualistic, like black and white, two sides of a coin type of thing like the mental condition is. It's not of the mental condition. That's why it can have a great influence over the mental condition. So I think this is, we have a way of life to maintain a sober mental condition. Yeah. Relying on spirit. I don't feel like I have to maintain the spiritual condition. I don't. Yeah. Most people who call me are not calling about maintaining a spiritual condition. They're calling about how to maintain or deal with a mental, emotional, physical, circumstantial condition. Yes? Which is all being interpreted by the mental. So I feel really the maintenance is the mental condition, and you better get into the right habits. Yeah. Because a habit is an action without thought. You don't want the mental condition to have a lot to say about its mental condition. it's not gonna maintain a good one as the captain of that ship, so to speak. Yeah. So how many times does it have to fail? Hopefully we all have had enough in these squares. Yeah. That we know any life run on self-will, which would be stemming from the mental condition, is not going to be successful. Yeah. Because it's too easily taken over, really. Yes. It's open to parasitical movements. It's open to anger. It's open to this. And one spurt of anger could, tattoo you for the rest of your life. A lot of people in San Quentin, the prison around here, their rest of their life on an external level is based on an action that happened while they were taken over by anger. Yeah. And now they're suffering the consequences of that. I'd much rather be taken over by the spiritual condition, which brings about a certain stability to the unstable mental condition. And one thing that has been stable in my life is sobriety, 34 years. Yeah. It's amazing, really. Yeah. The mental state couldn't have done it. No freaking way. But the spiritual state has. And that is our solution. Yeah. So, yeah, this is, to me, it's very, very important. I think the quit playing God is really goes with the statement, self is what has defeated us. So self defeats us through its manifestations while playing God. That's, in that way, the self is the God that manifests in our life. Yeah. And by being in the act of identification, we take its manifestations ours. And there you go. That's the bondage of self. The bondage of self, let's say if I was traveling, on a train and I had one carry-on and I took the luggage of the person next to me with 4 fucking heavy bags, I would be bound to that luggage because I was identified. I owned it. I took responsibility for it, so to speak. Yes. And now I'm bound. It's going to affect my traveling the whole day because I got to take these 4 freaking things off and hide them or whatever. I remember my girlfriend and I, we'd be traveling. She tried to take so much carry-on. She was hiding the shit underneath other people's seats. We'd get on the plane in Asia and then she'd have shit in other people's seats all around the plane because she didn't want to pay for the luggage. So she's taking about 80 pounds and putting them in. And every flight she'd have to get them. It was just amazing. So, yeah. I mean, this is straightforward. It describes us, but us is a collective. Yeah. Everyone, in a way, is driven on some level like the alcoholic. We're just extreme examples of it, but it's not like we're the only example of it. Yeah. So there you go. I hope you're done, really. I hope you realize something doesn't work. I don't know how much it will take. I hope it's past the point, of critical mass. You're not managerial quality. You better be, even if you're directing hundreds of people, it's best that you're directed, and it's going to be by something, either the spirit, let's say, or the mental. It's, you're going to be used. There's no time you're not going to be employed, as they say. Something is using us. Is it the old employer or the new employer? Yeah. If you can start recognizing the old employer, then you'll see the distinction between it and the new employer. And yeah. So, yep, that's it for me today. We can go on and on. The quit blaming God is the most important statement for me, because it's rooted in where the problem resides. Yeah. The elbow isn't playing God, obviously. Your bowel movement isn't playing God. Your intestinal tract isn't playing God. There's something in that defines the subjective experience here, this sense of uniqueness and reacting to the same thing in different ways based on the condition you're in that day. That subjectiveness is where the playing God arises. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you keep thinking it's you and try to stop, that's just playing God. You have to hopefully see it as something other. And then you quit playing God. It continues to play God, but you quit it. And because you're the God juice, you start seeing through it's playing God, because it's not disguised by your light anymore. Yeah, your light is discerning information about it now, not fueling its little activity. Yeah. And hopefully what you see, you bring the step 6 and 7. Ask that shit to be removed or reconfigured or put to different use by the new employer or whatever. Yeah. And I found in that attitude, everything has value. Every freaking thing. Yeah. That's an incredible quality in your subjective experience, is to see that everything has value. You may not be able to get it, but it does, and you will sooner or later. Yeah. There's a statement out of the Course in Miracles. Interesting book. Your greatest successes are your failures, and your greatest failures are your successes. It can go it can go that in a subjective dreaming, it can go that way. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks. Happy everyone's here. And
thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Anybody got any hands? Want to share? Ask Paul a question? Riff on what we just
Yeah, just riff. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about that. There's that part in the book that says when we straighten out spiritually, then the mental and physical come. Like, it was like what you were saying about all of a sudden you're seeing from the right place.
Yeah.
I remember thinking I identified with people in the meetings. And one day I realized I don't identify with people in the meetings. I identify with the condition that's driving people in the meetings.
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah, that's our camaraderie, is we've been taken over by the same tyrannical movement, so we know what it's like. Yeah. Yeah. That's why, one alcoholic can reach another, because we've lived under the same tyranny. Mm-hmm. It says very clearly, self, not selves, has defeated us. A singularity has defeated us. A singularity that does not have an infinite set of traits. It has very recognizable traits if you do an inventory on it. You'll start seeing what it takes to be important in what you call your life. Its manifestations will be around that: resentments, anxiety, willing to do something that's wrong to get what you think is right. You'll see it. Yeah. So you'll recognize the patterns and you'll recognize what it deems to be important, and then hopefully take that topic or category of your life and turn it over to the higher power. Yeah. That's the beauty of the inventory. You can see that thing that's invisible, you can see its footprints in your life. And its footprints are recognized in patterns. Yeah. And so you see the pattern of how self defeats you, because some of us, even though we were down and out, we had huge pride. So we were trying to save our face instead of our ass. Yeah. So you saw that when you did the inventory, a lot of your resentments was concerning self-esteem, pride, relationship to others. Yes. Paranoia about what other people were thinking, which is only what you were thinking other people were thinking about. Yes. And so you start recognizing the value system of the parasite. Yeah, what it deems important while you're walking around with the story, what is important to you. There's something that really is delivering its importance into your life. Yeah, without us knowing it most of the time. So, but then when you do the inventory and you have some guidance, you'll be able to recognize it. And when you recognize those patterns, which keep coming up, you can bring on the 6 and 7. We have a perfect like conveyor belt. No ownership. Put it on there. Ask that other power or the power to reconfigure it. Yeah, it's sort of like, yeah, I'm entirely ready for you to melt all the gold jewelry and make it something else, basically. Yeah, all the value, good or bad, they're both values in my life. I turn over to you and to make it with what you want. It's basically the spirit of the whole 6 and 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen while you're living in life? You're going to see the patterns of self and how it defeated you in the past, hopefully. And by recognizing it now, the defeat won't occur. Yes. And the self will definitely weaken when it can't produce the defeats it used to defeat. Yes. Yes, it does. It weakens. So that's when there's still a lot of loss of interest in it, which is really its death knell, so to speak, is loss of interest. Because it doesn't have any life of its own. It's us, yes? We breathe life into it all day. Our breath is used to give it life, so to speak. Now we can give that breath over to something else and have it used for something else, yes? Yeah, I think it's really, really beautiful. And, it's weird how most people look at life as a light and dark thing, all the movies. It's a very dualistic thing. So we're using dualism to pronounce one aspect at the expense of the other. Yeah, so now there's a losing interest in self, and obviously there'll be a gaining interest in find out, let's say spirit. And then your life changes, obviously. Yeah. Yeah. All under the principle that something is doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself. So you don't have to take responsibility for all the grace. You can just receive it. Yeah. Yeah. Much cooler.
Yeah, very much cooler.
Yeah. There's no weight when you're bound to spirit. There's not much weight involved, I don't feel. Yeah. It's just always there. Gateless gate. It's open. If you if you give up the ghost, there it is completely. No time at all. Yeah. So your saving grace is always available at all times. Just take a breath ask that person to help you or what, and the whole thing gets triggered. Yeah. And you know what happens with a lot of us? We become masters of asking, but we don't receive the help. Yes. People can really have a great story, and then they don't hang around the meeting to receive anything. They just go ahead, tell the story over and over and over again. And there's a huge identity in it. Yeah. And something doesn't really want to change. It just wants to talk about it all the time. Yeah. So some of us are masters at asking for help, but we don't receive it. This is I think this is an important part of recovery, is to receive the information and let it do its thing. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, I totally missed that the first 20 years. I mean, it was more about the menu than the meal,
yeah. Yeah. Well, at that, even though the menu helped in a way.
Yeah.
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 Until you could actually turn to the meal. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Chris has got his hand up. Chris, you want to come in?
Hi, Paul.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
That's an interesting thing came up this morning at work. This is not really recovery related, but it touches on the idea of service from another side we've talked about. Someone I work with, a lot of the people I work with actually are in Ukraine. Some of them are, close to the trouble. Some of them are further away. They always look stressed. And one guy I was having a video call with this morning. He said he woke up to the sound of bombs exploding, and he started to kind of almost break down a little bit. And I said, it must be really hard to function and work through that. And he said, well, last week I volunteered to go into this neighborhood where everything had been destroyed, and I just helped pick up rubble. And I'm with a bunch of people who never met them before. We're just cleaning up. And he said he couldn't believe how much that just helped him. Just a lot of his anxieties just went away. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's proven over and over and over again. Yeah, because we don't realize we're seemingly in something until we get out of it. So the service gets us out of it. And then,
totally.
But while you're in it, pontificating, it doesn't work. But when you just do something or whatever, then you get a free sample of the out. And then hopefully an understanding settles in, and you can start recognizing stuff.
It's a really good self-sustaining failed system that just convinces you can't.
Yes.
It's really, really amazing.
Well, that's the thing to know, is that it does not see self can't get out of self. There's no fucking way. You have to see that from somewhere else, because it refuses to get that. It's just not in its program.
It's nonsensical.
You would think, but it just grabs a couple more breaths from us and then tries it again somehow. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it runs out of vehicles sooner or later. I mean, shit.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I've met people, they've been trying to get out of self their whole life. Tons of. I was like a one-trick pony. It was mostly drugs until other things. But these people, they're, and yet there's that anxiety of, yeah.
It can be enjoyed.
Yeah, service is, part of the triangle.
It's like it's a strange, I don't want to call it a denial of the non-existent self. It's somehow it's an active ignoring of it.
Yeah, you get out of that orbit. that
Yeah.
orbit, it's just, you get pulled out. And then you realize by being out, you realize what it is like to seemingly be in. You can't know what it's like to be in until you get an opposite, in a sense, a sample to realize, wait a minute. Yeah, because my experience with service over time was I saw a pattern of the relief. And the pattern was I felt bigger than I usually feel. Yeah. And when I felt bigger, I felt available to what was happening right then, not so available to the head's interpretation of everything. And that feeling of being available and big and present would keep being produced. And then one day I saw it, not from the self, but I saw it from the presence. So if I'm present and available, I'm of service. And that was a big shift. Yeah. Because before, for me to be of service, I had to be doing service. And then something switched where I didn't see service from the one that needed to get out of itself, but from the presence that I am, that becomes available and obvious through the service. So it switched. I stopped looking at it from me and I looked at the me from the presence, and I realized, hey, I'm always present. I'm always available. That's being of service. I mean, you're on.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a switch. But because I saw the pattern of the relief over the years of doing service, I saw something that was the underlying principle of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's counterintuitive in some ways. But once it's...
Well, in the head it is.
Yeah.
The head, when you're looking at it from the head's point of view, most shit that works is counterintuitive to the head, because it's not all about you. And the head is all about you. So it covers its inability to see shit by saying that's paradoxical, or no, it works. That's why it's paradoxical to something that doesn't work. When it sees something that works, it can't get it. I wouldn't think it would work that way. Yes, and you will not think it will work that way. So get off that fucking horse. It's not going to come around. The program it's not like AI. It's not growing. It's mechanical.
It's not learning.
It's mechanical. It doesn't learn.
Yeah.
It learns begrudgingly. But certain things are beyond its scope, which is, it can't imagine everything without it. It's always being included. And it's sort of like eventually your vision falls upon it, because you realize blaming others doesn't work. The if onlys don't work. None of this. So finally you realize, hey, maybe you are the problem. And then it's great because you're not the problem. Yeah, but
not really.
You don't get to you're not the problem, I don't believe, until there's an owning of you are the problem. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
So I don't think as the problem, you can leap over everything and be not the problem. I believe you go through without knowing it, you're the problem. Then you're the problem. And then there's a realization you're not the problem. Hallelujah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Al B. Jump in here, Al B.
Anonymous Meshuggah not at an AA meeting. Convinced is my issue. Convinced. My convincer refuses to be convinced. I actually looked up the etymology today. I never did that before. I mean, it parallels self doesn't reveal self to self, or I'm so lost in self that I can't see how lost I am. My convincer is convinced that you're all convinced and I have a mustard seed of doubt, I'll flip it. And I'm not here to debate or argue. Quite the contrary. I'm here to become convinced. And you, Mr. P, brought my attention to that convinced word, and especially in the second, well, actually the third appearance there on 64, being convinced itself. So there's a triple appearance that I really got to get convinced here. This is the point, a turning point, a fulcrum, if you will, for me. And like I say, I'm not here to stir the pot. I'm here to become more convinced or remain convinced. I don't have words for this. I don't have words. So yesterday, one of my other mentors, because two of them are in this room, one of my other mentors in his little workshop said, take away my difficulties. And I thought you were my difficulties. I'm my difficulty. My mind, my convincer is my difficulty. So I'm coming out of that. I'm coming back here to hear you and your take on the steps like the format says. So I think I'll shut up at this point and let you riff away, Senor P. If you have something to share with me on this convincing, I'll say one more thing, being convinced. I thought it was a verb. Maybe I'm the being, the spiritual being that you started with this. Maybe my being needs to be convinced. There's your title, Michael. Being convinced. This being, whether it's spiritual or what is it? I'm a human being of a spiritual experience. This being needs to be convinced. Yeah, I'm pointing at myself. And now I will cease verbalizing.
All right. So what about the possibility that you already are convinced that there's a knowing something that your head doesn't want to know? So it plays the role of doubting and this and that, but that's the faith in the finite self. So you're believing that it says you have a doubt. When you lose interest in its believing, you'll realize the spirit is completely always being convinced. Yeah. Not about what we're in, but about what it is. Yeah. Therefore, it has the eyes to see what you're not. Yes. Because it's completely convinced of what it is. And it ain't a thing. It's not a mental activity. Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. It surprised me when I realized I had the ability to be convinced, because something put an end to something and it never really regenerated with the force and vigor it used to have. And it's been sort of subdued or dormant for 34 years, which is pretty damn good because it was a lively fucking influencer. And, in a way, it rests in peace. Yeah. It's dead to me now in a lot of ways. Yes. And it rests,
mine is not nearly
it rests in peace. R.I.P. Recovery in a person. R.I.P. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how something can come about, but I did know when it did come about. When I had heard enough, like at Joe and Charlie's and at meetings, I just had heard enough, and I was convinced of most of the things that we share in out of the big book. I was convinced any life run on my self's will was not going to be successful. I was convinced of it. I was convinced that I wasn't managerial quality. I was convinced of a lot of things. Yeah. And some of them I've stayed convinced. Most of them, really. Yeah. And the if onlys didn't come back, or the but, or what if, or all that. It was just laid to rest. thank God, in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I'm a believer of surrendered, which is a state that's maybe, it almost becomes a past tense that's a present foundation. So you're surrendered to some principles. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. You're not taking information from 30 different sources. You're following, let's say, one source. Yes. The North Star or something. And the faith in it has been binding because it works. Yeah. So you've come to an incredible cohesion with it because it's worked. Yeah. No advertising, no rationalizing, excusing, pointing the finger at. It's worked. Yeah. And so over the years, it's become pretty sound. Yeah. And so I don't have to go through surrendering. I'm surrendered. It's something, convinced that, you know, and it, for me, it took a whack, like getting struck sober in a sense. It wasn't one of those educational varieties, which is fine. They work both. Yeah. Because the end result, when it occurs, it didn't matter how long it took or whatnot. It was, now it's a new day. Yeah. Boom. And so, yeah. And I used to recommend people who were early, recommend to you, Al, right now, please, give me the ability to be convinced. Yeah. Because it's all there. It's just how something's reading it and is denying a lot. If you read the print, you'll come to the conclusion. Yeah. Yeah. I like a lot of stuff because a lot of interest and attention goes down tributaries. They don't go anywhere. It just dries up. Yes. And I like, this is like a living spring. It's like a rivering. It's got oomph, and it goes to the source and stuff. Yeah. And instead of having 30 what ifs and 50 ideas, it's all moving in one force, pretty much like a river. Yeah. Yeah. And all the mental tributaries, a lot of them have dried up, and that water has returned to that source and has momentum. Yeah. And you can travel on that water. It's not a little tributary that's only an inch deep. It's pretty sound, and it has momentum in one's life. It can demonstrate stuff and express. Yeah. And I feel that's what abstinence and being convinced does. It dries up a lot of if onlys or I should haves or this could have been or whatever. All these little mental activities that I feel just almost waste, like a wasting of interest and attention. Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's wasting because that brings it bad, but it's sort of like, it's sort of like when you entertain the idea, I would have been a pro surfer when your leg has been twisted to a point where you can't stand up long. You know what I mean? You don't get on that boat and go down that tributary because it always has to run into the dried upness because you got run over by a car. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? It puts an end to the whole little what if or but. Yeah, because you're facing life with the facts. Yeah. Yeah. I feel the whole point was I was powerless and unmanageable, but I wasn't in agreement with that. When I got into agreement with that, it opened a lot of power up. But I was mostly in the denial of that fact. It was still a fact, no matter how much I was denying it, that I was not managerial quality, and I had been taken over by something that no human power was going to change. Yeah. When I became aligned with that fact, those facts, by going to meetings and shit, life started to work a lot better. Yeah.
I feel I'm still manufacturing misery. I'm looking at Tom's earnest eyes, and I'm still manufacturing misery. And what is it? The architect of adversity, because I love I love the adrenaline. I love the angst, man. I love
Well,
that.
then just stay accountable, and then don't yap as if you want it to change when you don't. Just fucking be accountable now. When the shit hits the fan, or it doesn't work, or you're not at peace, well, there you go. It's just like Kurt just said. You've read the menu and you ordered the meal. Now fucking pay the bill. And don't keep calling me that you'd like it to be different when you don't. Yeah. I like accountability. It keeps my phone bills down unbelievably. You know, just like, hey, you want to be fucked? Go ahead. Far out. Just don't call me. I don't want to hear about it unless there's interest in having it change. Yeah. So tell the truth. And it's not you, Al, either. It's the head that says that. The head says it loves the adrenaline. Just see what you're not. Yeah. And then you won't be beholden to its fucking, you won't be betrothed to it. Yeah. Yeah. You'll be able to go a different direction other than the one it likes to set. Yeah. It's a recognition of that which is talking as you to you isn't you. Yeah. That's how you lose interest in it. It's not Al. Yeah. Yeah. So, but hey, when people say they really want to get fucked up, go great. Go ahead. You know what I mean? So if you're really keen on it, you might as well. That's going to convince you for sure. If you want to get to the state of being convinced, yeah, go back out and use. You'll be convinced.
It'll let all the air out of the balloon, won't it?
You're like the adrenaline when you're sitting in the cell after being up 10 straight days on coke. You'll love it. Yeah. And no one's listening to you. They're not getting you any water. You can't see the nurse. Yeah. Yeah. You'll be digging it, bro. Yeah. I love this. I love the adrenaline. Yeah. Sitting in the back seat with the little fucking fucking bars and the cops talking to you like you're a fish he caught in a fucking bucket. You're like thinking you're so special. Yeah, you're going to jail. No one's going to listen to you at all. No one gives a shit how much adrenaline's pumping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Life usually weans you off of those things. Life usually weans you off of that shit because it doesn't work. Yeah. I was up for many days at times, and it would be fucking interrupted by a police, and I would be just fucking, the come down was so extreme. I was just broken over and over again. I just couldn't take it. And yet I do the same thing when I got out again. Yeah. So,
all right,
you know where they like adrenaline? Soup kitchens. They'd love your adrenaline there. Yeah. You'll be pouring out the soup, making it, cleaning the dishes. Yeah. That would be great. Yeah. I really like you, Al. It's nice to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah. Tom, we got Tom's hand up. You want to jump in here, Tom?
Hi, Paul. Tom, alcoholic. So a couple of weeks ago, I asked a friend of mine to take me through the steps, and he suggested that I look at page 52, what they call bewilderments. and suggested that I start writing down maybe a paragraph or two on each one of them. There's about 8 or 9 of them. You know, we were full of fear, we were unhappy, we couldn't make a living, having trouble with personal relationships. And I knew I was a little rough around the edges, you know. But when I started doing this, I mean, all I got to do is walk out here 50 feet to the guy building my shed backwards, and boom. And then run into his wife, and boom. And then I went to a gathering over on Lopez, and these are my old friends from, some of them were Osho followers and stuff like that. And boom, boom, boom. And I wrote about every single transaction. And I mean, I'm fucking crazy. I mean, nothing's satisfying. Nothing is satisfying. I'm in conflict with, in collision with just about everything and everyone. And
you're not, which is the good news. And you're not. See, let it reveal itself as you, and then pull out the rug from underneath it. And it's not. Yeah.
yeah,
That's the beauty of it, man. How are you going to see it?
sitting right here talking to you, I see it. I see that I'm not it.
Yes, yes.
Being in
So
the
all
sunlight
that
of the
stuff
spirit,
that you wrote about isn't you. Hallelujah.
right? But it did convince me that self-will doesn't work.
Great. Yes.
That's my
Yes.
point, I think, is that. And then he asked me to do something else, which no one's ever asked me to do. He said, well, what would sanity look like? And I just started that exercise this morning. And it kind of bothered me because I don't want to go into another dream projection of what sanity will look like, but it has a lot to do with neutrality, you know?
Yeah.
So
There you go. Or you can look at what it's like now instead of what you think it's going to look. What does it look like now to be sane? Yeah.
looks like freedom.
There you go. So, yeah, it's always good to keep it in that idea of now, in a sense.
Mm.
Yeah, because the freedom is available now. If the freedom isn't available after you do all the shit, even though it may be seemingly necessary, the freedom, you're placed in that freedom. You don't arrive there. So the freedom is somewhere where you thought you've left, being so relevant that you could fuck things up and do this and do that to leave it. And what the spirit constantly convinces you of is no. In one sense, nothing ever happened. Forgiveness is readily available. It's you that's withholding it from you. Yeah? This is the gateless gate, the open secret. So you realize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but the work, if it starts becoming an obstacle to the possibility of being free now, the head is using its little fucking machinations to get you on another treadmill. All right, I'm going to be at peace when I do this and do that. No. Yes? No. The availability, you may have to do it that way, but that's not the way. The way is always available at all times right where you are, with no requirement necessary to be there. You are there. So yes, you do what you need to do to really realize you didn't need to do it, basically. Really,
Right.
that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
You needed to do it, and you really didn't need to do it. Yeah, so yeah. Hopefully that speeds shit up, and so you start from I don't need to do it. So you don't have to arrive there by doing a lot. Sooner or later you get it. You just don't. Yeah. You just don't do anything, and all is revealed. Yeah. So, but yeah, bro, I'm happy to see you. And
Thank you.
yeah, it doesn't matter how you get there, you are there. So if there's a thing in the course again that one way it presents itself in this dreaming, in this experience, is you and I are going to dream ourselves out of the dreaming. So obviously to dream yourself out of the dreaming, you would be using dreamlike things to dream oneself out of the dreaming. So meetings or practices or writing and shit like that. So yeah. So you and I are dreaming ourselves out of the dreaming. And as we do, the dream will get happier. Yeah. It doesn't say it's an eternal dreaming. It isn't. The dream ends also. But right now, the dream will get happier. And part of the happiness of the dream is when all the shit you felt you needed to do, you don't need to do anymore. That's fucking really nice. It is. I mean, you're not maintaining a spiritual condition. You're in the state of a maintained mental condition, relying on spirit. Yeah. Yeah. So now some of us are in the habit of being sober. Yeah. Which is a game changer because the whole field is different. There's no game today. Yeah. The field can be used for anything. Yeah. Yeah. So, but whatever we need to do it. Yeah. If someone says you need to do this and it hits somewhere and it feels sincere, then do it. But everything that you do leads to the possibility there's nothing to do, usually. Yes. So the doing itself will negate its value eventually. Right?
Yeah.
That's what happens. We don't rely on shit in a sense.
Yeah.
Because we're being that which is relied upon. Yeah. So there's no. I'm not identified with spirit like the head is identified as a self. I don't break the identification as self and now identify with something else. No, there's no more identification. The mental identification keeps appearing, and I'm not of that. And then you're just fucking free range alcoholic, whatever. Life will tell you what's going on. Yeah. If I wake up, I'm really tired. I don't have much to do. I try not to do much. If I feel like I'm hungry, I eat. If I feel like, hey, these bodies getting older, I got to stretch out. Hopefully, I can stretch out. Yeah. Yeah. Someone calls me up. Hey, can you talk about this thing with me today? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks, bro.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. We got one more, Noah.
Noah.
Yo, what's up, Paul? I haven't seen you in a while, man. I'm 96 days clean and sober. It's the longest I've ever made it. I just got out of a Zen monastery in upstate New York where I was for 2 months, which was pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm in the reprieve zone where like it feels pretty, I mean, the thoughts are there. We've talked about this kind of thing before, but it seems like the phone ringing in somebody else's house, right? And I got a really intimate sense of that, like non-identified space, sitting on my ass for 2 months in a Zen monastery, right? Because at a certain point, with all the thoughts, you're like, you got babies, you got bathwater, babies, chuck them over the shoulder, bathwater, chuck them, like everything out, you know, fuck them, you know. So everything sort of gets treated after a while with the same gravity, which is none. You know, now I'm back in the world and I'm like, I'm really happy, man. I really feel good and I really don't want to use, but there's all these things now coming up that I'm not used to questioning. Like it's not that hard for me to now see the patterns that seek substances as the source of relief as not me. But goddamn, like, you know, you talk about desire for a woman, for her attention or touch, or you talk, or anything like feeling based, you know, it's like, God, I'm so quickly caught in those things. And it's beautiful because now I can see that shit, you know? Yeah, it's like, I'm afraid that it'll try and come up in new and myriad ways, you know? But whatever, I don't know. I just wanted to get my hand up and say something. I'm so good to listen to you and hear everybody.
Well, Noah, you gotta get some phone numbers and just touch base with other people, yeah. Because again, there's a lot of oomph through you, and that oomph needs to be directed other than by your head. Yeah. And so you've got this big momentum push, the Zen and everything. Let that thing just build up more momentum, just a day at a time. And when things come up, you can give it over to the whatever that power is for you. And when the old behavior patterns show up, just bring it to 6 and 7. Get into the habit of using that prayer.
Yeah.
Really, it works. It really does. Just get into the habit of that. So you get into the habit of recognizing the patterns of self that appear on the screen as not yours, and you bring it to 6 and 7. And so it can't give birth because you've turned it over already. It can't give birth to some crazy shit.
Yeah.
And the closer you can get it out of the oven, the better, because it's not formed at all. And you can just ask that, hey, take these feelings and take this energy and put it to your use. Yeah. Yeah. And then report back and tell us how it's going. Because I'm telling you, it works. It does. Yeah. So you got all this juice going. You don't want to be the director of it. You know what happens, that head. So you just surrender, and even to make it formalized, hey, I'm making a decision right now to turn this will and life over to the care of a higher power. And if the response to that is doing an inventory, service, whatever, just get on it. Get on the train. Yeah. That's great, bro. I'm happy to hear.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, very happy. Yes. And this is a great momentum, 96 days. You got some like airplane propellant in there. So, yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks,
Yep.
Noah.
All right. Is that it, guys?
That's it. That's it, Paul. You want to say your goodbyes?
I do. I want to say my goodbyes. Kurt, as always, thank you for the service and stuff. And Tom, it's a pleasure to meet you, Tom. And yeah. Mickey, as always, yes. We got Walter. What can I say about Walter? So we got Al in Vegas. Al in Vegas, another character I like. Yes, all of us I do. Stefan on Having Never Left, you see? Yeah. There's a lot of, on Having Never Left is very cool, really. It's got a good, yeah. Roman, my main man in Germany. John S. in Florida. Yes. We got Maria. She graced us with her lovely presence. We got Gail, the pink cloud. She's getting her hair ready for going to be looking cool. Yeah.
Plugged in.
You're plugged in. Yes, that's right. It can. Those coils can hold a lot of electricity. Yeah, it's pretty good. We got Noah. There he goes. We got Michael S. Michael Stacy. Jack G. Oh, Jack G. Very nice, Jack. Whenever you resurface, we'll be here, bro.
Can I give you a quick call after the meeting?
Yeah, you have my number. All right. Yeah, make sure I put the phone on. Yeah, give me a call. I gotta see. Well, whatever. Nina, nice to see you, honey. You feeling good? Everything? Oh, great. Yes. Annette, there she is. I had the pleasure of meeting Annette down in Doylestown. We got Gil, very beautiful lighthouse. Lucas, Bruce, Conal McCarthy. Wow. That was my mother's name, Mary Margaret McCarthy. We got Oliver from Berlin. We got Sina, Dave B, Jesse. Hey, I have an announcement for today too. We have a talk at 4:30 Pacific time. It's going to be under our Zoom now, Zen Bitch Slap Zoom. We're not awakening together with Awakening Together anymore. So it's on Zoom. So I'm going to get up there for a few minutes early. So, and then I'm going to hope will co-host it for us. So I can, yeah. So this is today at 4:30 and it will continue. I think it's on the website. Just hit the Zoom link. You'll come in. All right, great. Back to saying goodbye. We got Jess from Ireland. Jess, what a lasting impression she's made on us. Yes, very nice. Italy, I got tattooed by everybody. I've got a tattoo of everybody that was there. I do. It's a trip. I can feel it. So Dave B. and Mandy, I think she may not be there today. Let's see if we got anyone else. I think that's it. So listen, thanks everyone. We'll see you later, hopefully, or to whenever in the next few days.